I would say that going to a film, particularly going to a theater and watching it, not just as your family unit, but with other family units, people that you don't know. What that does is creates communal societal trust, bonds.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Luria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. And in this week's episode, we are going to be going over the record-setting debut numbers of Deadpool and Wolverine, as well as previewing the coming releases in the month of August. Here with us on this week's panel, we've got Rebecca Pauley, deputy editor at Box Office Pro, and Chad Kennerk, our staff writer here at Box Office Pro, who will be interviewing Zachary Levi. One of the stars in this weekend's Harold and the Purple Crayon is going to be part of the feature segment of this week's podcast. Before we launch, a big thank you to our sponsors this week who formed part of our 2024 Giants of Exhibition series. That is Barco, Digital Cinema United, Fandango, and VIP Luxury Seating. A huge thank you to them for all they do in supporting our work here at Box Office Pro. And you can find that top 50 ranking of the biggest circuits in North America by screen count over on our website at boxofficepro.com. But Rebecca, Chad, let's launch into this week's episode because there's a lot to go over. And let's start with the good news. Deadpool and Wolverine, record-setting debut last weekend. I skipped it because
not your thing.
Not my thing. It doesn't have to be because it's a thing of many other people, but both of you guys saw it. Let's start with you, Chad. Where did you see it? What'd you think of it?
Yeah, I saw it in IMAX at Metropolitan Theaters, and it was at 9:45 a.m. screening. It was very full.
Oh, man. What day was it? Is it
Saturday?
Okay.
Saturday.
All right.
Yeah. I've been pretty vocal about not being a fan of this Phase 5, I believe, that Marvel is in. I haven't really
Who's keeping count, Chad?
Yeah, right.
No one's keeping count.
Different phases for TV and for movies.
There is maybe $210 million of that $211 million opening weekend of Deadpool and Wolverine that do not care about the phases. They just go to see the movies.
Right. Well, I will say out of all of the films that have been released in that phase, I probably enjoyed this one the most, partially because it's making fun of all of the other films that have been released in this phase with the whole multiverse situation.
There was one, I like the joke in there early on when, I can't remember which character said it, but like, yeah, you're joining Marvel at a low point.
Yeah, Deadpool telling Wolverine that. Yeah, that was good.
Rebecca, you saw it as well. Where did you catch the film?
The AMC on 34th Street near Madison Square Garden. Not any particular kind of a special format or anything. Daniel, do you know the theater? I think it's Theater 6, where like the auditorium, you feel like you're walking into like a storage closet. It's very hard to see that there's even an auditorium there, but there was.
I'm a fan of those micro auditoriums at multiplexes. That's where when I saw Longlegs over in like suburban Philly, they put me in a 49-person auditorium.
Nice.
I love them. I love it small, intimate, dark. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, I think there were like 6 rows here. Anyway, yeah, it was what I expected it to be. Let's say that it was a movie made for 13-year-old boys to sneak into or to convince their parents to see. Actually, my mom texted me last week asking if I'd heard anything about the film. She wanted to know if she'd go see it. I hate to recommend not to go to a movie theater, but I had to tell her, like, this just wall-to-wall references. So I don't know if it will connect for that audience, but it didn't need to connect with the audience of ladies in their 60s because it connected with
everybody else.
With everybody, with dudes, especially with dudes. Yeah.
Especially with dudes, 64% gender split going to male for this movie. That's, not surprising, but also effective for what it was going for. We really can't knock it in its achievement in marketing itself so well. And it was risky because, as you guys point out, this is a movie that I think is being talked about now post-release because of its cameos, because of its inside jokes.
That's pretty much all it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
hard. But it's hard to market an inside joke to $211 million opening weekend,
Mhm.
and it was able to, I think, communicate an inclusivity in that, like, you're part of the cool kids group, even though the cool kids group is literally everyone that is going to be in on the joke. I think that's very effective. It's not that easy to do. I think in many ways, something like that could be seen as esoteric in the worst way. That's not what happened here. I think Deadpool and Wolverine executed a perfect marketing strategy. And let's get into some of these numbers because the records it broke are still coming out. We're going to start with the box office records. Then we're going to go into the individual circuits that have sent us some of the records they've broken. That opening weekend is the highest R-rated debut of all time, the first R-rated movie to break the $200 million mark at the box office in its opening weekend. It beats the prior record holder for the highest R-rated opening weekend, which was the original Deadpool. That opened to, what was it, like 132, 135? This is just a completely new benchmark that was set. This is the number 6 highest opening weekend of all time, which now gives Disney 5 of the top 6 opening weekends of all time domestically. And if we just talk about Marvel Studios titles, we'd throw in Spider-Man No Way Home in there to make it 6 out of 6 for MCU among the highest opening weekends of all time. New life is now being breathed into this Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has surpassed $30 billion in box office, a huge, huge benchmark for this series. The audience demographics, yes, it's skewed heavily male, no surprise there, but everything else I think is fairly well balanced, which speaks well for this film's playability in the future. Let's look at the demos here. Caucasian representing 36%, Hispanic audiences, once again, over-indexing with 31%, followed by African American and Asian audiences with 17% respectively. Going into the age range, it's an R-rated movie, so we saw this coming, 13 to 17, which usually benefits quite a bit from these superhero movies. Only 6%, single digits. That's usually a kiss of death for superhero movies. Not the case here. It was able to get key demos here. 18 to 24, 31% of that opening weekend audience in North America. 25 to 34, 29%. That means 6 out of 10 tickets sold for opening weekend of this title were for audiences ages 18 to 34. That is a very, very difficult demo to reach consistently. Marvel has now done it. Wrapping this up, 35 to 44-year-old demo, 20%, 45 to 54, 10%. And with apologies to Mrs. Polly in North Carolina, we don't. Your daughter already gave out your age, but 55 and plus demo, only 5%, the lowest demo numbers. So yes, Rebecca, I think it's fine, okay, fair to tell your mom, you know what, Mom?
Go see Twisters again.
Great.
She liked Twisters, yes.
Why not? I
Yeah,
saw Twisters
yeah.
last week. Wonderful experience.
So good,
Would
so
watch
good.
it again.
More
Uh,
Tierney fans coming out of the woodwork on this one. I didn't know she was so popular.
Yeah, and you know what? Twisters held on. It didn't hit that $40 million range we were hoping it would. It ended up with, I think, around $35 million in its sophomore frame. Still decent performance in its second frame.
It is coming back to some 40X screens. I know it at Regal, and I would imagine at other chains as well. Bringing that into the motion seating. So hopefully that's gonna help it as we launch into an August that is, let's say, is going to be lacking some of those big hits that we've seen in the past month.
Yeah, and we're really going to be riding the wave of Wolverine and Deadpool. And as you mentioned, maybe some of that PLF carryover from Twisters. That's how I saw it. I saw it at the 4DX in Times Square last week. We do have some more titles coming out in August that we will be highlighting later on in the episode. But let's wrap up our Deadpool and Wolverine box office conversation by just going over the top overseas markets here. China in first place with 24 million. Second place is the UK with 22.1 million. Mexico, which I have to give a huge shout out here. I think Mexico ended up having its first $100 million US dollar earner in history with Inside Out 2, which hit that benchmark last week. Fantastic success story for Inside Out 2 in Mexico. Anyway, Deadpool and Wolverine opening to 18.7 million, third largest market internationally that's coming in from Mexico. Fourth place here in international markets is Australia with 13 million. And then we've got a three-way tie for fifth place, each with $10 million. That is a tie between Germany, Brazil, and India. So solid performances overseas for this film as well. Overperformed, I think, in every level. If you listen to this podcast last week, I think we gave out a range of 180 to 210. We were a bit more conservative with the final forecast we went with online. I think we had a ceiling of 200 million. Ended up being on the nose. Our forecasting panel, huge shout out and high five for them for calling this one early. Not too many publications were saying that this had a clear shot for that $200 million benchmark, and it exceeded it.
And it makes me excited for what looks to be the next really, really high opener, Joker Folie à Deux, which I know are, I don't know the specific
Why
numbers.
do you keep on trying?
Change that.
You keep on trying with that subtitle. Just give up. It's okay. Call it Joker 2. No one's forcing you, Rebecca. You're just walking into this. And
I'm pedantic. Come on.
And like earlier, you just baited the Deadpool crowd, calling it a movie for 13-year-old boys, which, by the way, you're correct. So you shouldn't be getting all the hate mail alone. Send it to me as well. CC it to me too.
Hey, look, we all have that inner tweenage boy who still laughs at curse words.
That's fine. Yeah,
kind
sure.
of.
I mean, I got it all out of my system with the South Park movie at that age, right? That was my Deadpool and Wolverine, a movie also made for 13-year-old boys. Had a great time watching it when I was 13.
Also made for like Broadway people. That had like a Les Mis bit in there.
I would say that I'm in the world of that sort of edgy but mainstream, which, it's probably a lot more mainstream than it is edgy humor. I tend to lean more on the South Park side than I do the Deadpool side. Now let's move on to the Deadpool circuit records, because we saw some fantastic figures from chains like AMC, Cinemark, B&B, and the Reading global chain of cinemas. Let's start with the largest circuit in the country and the world, AMC and that ape army, who have been wonderful at retweeting all our social content. Thank you for supporting us on our social media channels. Unexpected. Still trying to get used to that plot twist. I'm not complaining. Thank you for reading us. But Rebecca, let's shout out our good friends in the retail stock side. What did AMC see this weekend?
Yeah, they saw record numbers, 6 million people total showing up for the weekend across all films, obviously, Deadpool and Wolverine being the majority of those tickets sold. Highest attendance and highest opening weekend admissions revenue for an R-rated movie for the chain in its entire century-plus history. On the F&B side, highest F&B revenue for a single weekend since before the pandemic. Highest weekend for sales of beer, wine, and cocktails in AMC history.
Wonderful.
Which is exactly the film for it. Everybody wanted to get a cocktail or a beer or something for this one. Record sales at the MacGuffin bar locations, which is in Cinema Bar, and also the highest ever grossing merchandise program for a film. It's the wording's a little bit clunky, but in terms of merch being sold for the film, AMC.
It beat Taylor Swift, is what you're telling me?
Oh, no, actually, you're right. No, you're right. It didn't. Sorry. Rewind
I was going to say Deadpool and Wolverine. No, we'll keep this. We have to mention it. The Swifties come out and they spend money. And I think the key indicator here is, as an adult, if you're 38 years old like I am and want to spend $30 plus on a popcorn bucket, sure, you might decide to do that. No problem with that. But if you're 38 years old and have 3 kids and they want a $30 Taylor Swift cup or T-shirt, you're walking out of that theater with those T-shirts and that cup, man. That's what I can guarantee you when it comes to merchandise sales.
Yeah, so Deadpool did not quite get to those Taylor Swift levels in terms of AMC merch sales, but it did come in second, and all the merch, including that provocative Wolverine popcorn bucket that looks, let's just say, not PG rated.
But here's my hot take. You guys have seen the bucket. It's just an open Wolverine
Look,
face. There's a tongue. The tongue makes it a little edgy, but nothing's going to beat the Dune 2 popcorn bucket.
No.
Like ever. That's all times level.
Because the Dune 2 popcorn bucket, it looked like
design.
you could actually like eat popcorn out of it. Like, I'm not going to spend a lot of money on it. I want a full amount of popcorn.
And I don't know if you guys saw this. AMC showing up to Comic-Con with a booth this year.
Yeah, first
with
time they've ever done that.
Their F&B merchandising. Very smart. I think a big kudos to our friends at AMC for doing it. And we mentioned the Taylor Swift concert a second ago. This week just came out the next AMC concert title coming out later this year, Usher. You guys remember Usher? I remember him mostly. It was part of like my generation go to a bar mitzvah soundtrack. There's like a very specific bar mitzvah playlist from the late 90s, early 2000s. Usher features prominently.
There was some tweet around the time of the Super Bowl that the opening strains of the song, the yeah one, that it's like an activation
or should I say
code,
yeah,
like for sleeper aid, like every millennial.
That's your Manchurian Candidate trigger. I love it. Let's go over to Cinemark now, the number 3 circuit in the nation, Chad. They also had some records.
Yeah, Cinemark had their highest grossing opening weekend for the chain's proprietary PLF format, Cinemark XD, and also for D-Box motion seating. They also had their highest weekend concessions revenue since 2019 and highest weekend merch sales. And then they also had the highest opening weekend gross of any summer from May to August in Cinemark history. So lots of records there too.
Wonderful to hear. And we can't forget about family-owned B&B theaters. Rebecca, we just heard from them as well. More records on their end.
Yeah, and the one that I was surprised to see there, Daniel, is that this was the film that gave B&B the biggest domestic market share percentage on a Marvel title, which, it's something that we talk about a lot, on this podcast. Some people wrongly, think of the cinema industry as being, quote unquote coastal elites, but the cinema, the exhibition side of things tends to be very focused in the Midwest. And we see, definitely certain titles, including faith-based titles, family titles, over-index in the middle of the country with theaters like B&B, like Marcus, and Deadpool and Wolverine too, apparently, over-indexing. Well, I actually don't know if it over-indexed. They just said it is our biggest domestic market share for a Marvel title. But compared to all of the other Marvel titles, I think that's a big record to get. Biggest opening weekend, biggest single day film opening, biggest Saturday box office, biggest Thursday box office, biggest Friday box office. Just a lot of biggest box office on there. But yeah, success for B&B as well, for sure.
And looking at the global side and domestic too, because Reading Cinemas has both domestic theaters, international theaters. What are some of the records that they hit, Chad?
Yeah, they had their biggest opening weekend gross ever for the chain's PLF formats, which includes their Titan and Titan Luxe. And then globally, it was the biggest PLF debut since 2022's Thor: Love and Thunder. For the chain, they also had a special Deadpool and Wolverine menu and merch that helped break their records there for the highest ever single day F&B spend per patron on July 25th. And then they also had the biggest opening weekend in terms of F&B revenue since the pandemic, and the highest earning movie merchandise revenues for a single movie.
Oh, that's great. So it's not just one circuit getting something. Mm-hmm. They're all seeing results from this investment in reaching these audiences.
F&B, merch, alcohol. We didn't get any statistics from chains other than AMC on having record alcohol sales, but I'm going to guess for those that have invested in alcohol sales, they probably saw some big numbers over the weekend.
Yeah, it's custom built for it. It really is. Great results here across the board in exhibition. And as you're listening to this episode, Deadpool and Wolverine has already crossed $500 million worldwide in box office. We expect it to continue in the number 1 spot next weekend, a drop that's going to be considerable. We do expect it to be front-loaded to a certain extent, but don't be too surprised if this ends up getting, $100 million in its second weekend. Deadpool, second weekend for a rated R movie. It could hit that. On the low end, in case it is very front-loaded, we still see a floor here of about $80 million for the sophomore frame of Deadpool and Wolverine. And of course, like every weekend, you can check out our final forecast on Thursday mornings over at boxofficepro.com. Second place here transitions us into our August preview, where we look up the titles that are going to be hitting screens all month. And let's kick off with the title that we expect to finish in second place on the weekend of August 2nd. That is M. Night Shyamalan's Trap, which we currently have an $18 to $25 million opening weekend range for. Of course, not strong enough to unseat Deadpool and Wolverine, but that was never the expectation for Trap. A movie about a guy that is played by Josh Hartnett that takes his daughter to go see a pop star played by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter that didn't direct a film earlier this year. And turns out, plot twist that is revealed 3 seconds into the trailer, so it's not a spoiler. Turns out Josh Hartnett's a serial killer guy. And the trap of the title is a trap to catch him at the concert. So
I would demand my money back if I went to that concert.
It reminds me a lot of that mid-90s Jean-Claude Van Damme. It was called Sudden Death, I think, where Jean-Claude Van Damme is like some sort of cop or fireman. Who cares? It's Jean-Claude Van Damme. He takes his son to go see a hockey game. I think it's a Pittsburgh Penguins. And in there, it ends up being Die Hard in a hockey arena, and it's kind of awesome. Listen, I'm looking forward to seeing what audiences feel about and think about Trap. But in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking Die Hard in a hockey stadium. It's hard to get that out of my mind. I know I'm in the sub 1% of people that will not let go of this association. So I want to hear from you guys. Chad, Rebecca, does this also remind you of a mid-90s action movie?
I went to Snake Eyes with Nick Cage. It was kind of like thrillers around boxing.
It's a Hitchcockian whodunit around a boxing match directed by Brian De Palma. And I insist to this day, an underrated De Palma movie. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's an underrated De Palma movie. Watch out for what I'm saying here. So it reminds you of Snake Eyes, a movie that I'm very fond of. That's fine.
Just a concept. I mean, every time M. Night Shyamalan I feel like every time he's come out with a movie in the past 5 years, people are like, "Oh, Shyamalan's back!" Like he's been back. He's been delivering some solid, if not to the heights that he reached with movies like The Sixth Sense, at least they're not to the lows of things like The Last Avatar. So we have that to be thankful for.
Yes. How about you, Chad? Are you at all appealed or marketed to by this film?
You know what it kind of reminds me of in a weird way is like the phone booth, Lock, Buried kind of movies.
It reminds me all of us of very different movies, and I'm loving this. That phone booth movie, was that with Colin Farrell?
Yeah.
That's also this like Hitchcockian thriller.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just titled Phone Booth, right?
Yeah.
And it takes place like in the early 2000s. And one of the three left in whatever fake New York City they decided to shoot it in. I still want to see that movie. Yeah, all Shyamalan movies have this easy to buy into hook, but then it's just down to execution. Yeah, the execution sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. He still has this charm with audiences where both Rebecca and Chad say, you see the trailer, it reminds you of something, and you're just a tiny bit curious, sometimes curious enough to buy a ticket.
And he's been doing a really good job on social media in the run up to the film, tweeting, fun facts about about the casting of the film, about the production of the film, and just from him being, at CinemaCon as well, you can tell that he really loves cinemas. He loves the experience of it, and I think some of that enthusiasm definitely translates.
Yeah, we do have to say, few directors are as vocal in being pro-theatrical as M. Night Shyamalan is. And I think some of the memification of his brand is unfair because of the maybe expectations that were placed into his career early on after the breakout hit of The Sixth Sense. But he's been a consistent performer here. And I think there's a distinct style that it's kind of like a take it or leave it. Some folks like it, some folks don't. But it's definitely something that there's enough of a market there to continue creating these films. Let's move over to the other title opening this weekend, Harold and the Purple Crayon. I don't want to talk about it too much because we've got actor Zachary Levi talking about the film itself in our feature segment in the back half of this episode. But Chad, can you preview the conversation you had with him? And
Yeah, I think, just to tease the conversation, the one thing that really stood out to me is we talked about movie going as being a good distraction in a world where there are so many distractions. Obviously, Harold and the Purple Crayon, based on the 1955 children's book by Crockett Johnson. And the film kind of assumes that this boy, Harold, has grown up and now comes to the real world.
Like, it's about embracing your creativity. And I like the book. I like I liked the book when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's going to be a counter-programming option here this weekend for folks that don't want to see an R-rated superhero movie or a thriller. I think it makes sense to find the spot for it. Because next weekend, switching spots here to August 9th is Neon's Cuckoo. They didn't want to be too close to Trap. They had a little bit of a, let's say, traffic jam there on the release here. Cuckoo, a very different sort of horror movie, not trying to be mainstream at all. Neon just scored the first pure horror hit of the year with Long Legs. We waited 6 months plus for that.
A Quiet Place Day One, I think.
Would you qualify that as horror?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
but the first, I feel like Long Legs was definitely the first big surprise breakout horror hit.
It's
a different situation.
I'm going to be difficult and call it more, I don't know. My expectations for horror is, I'd say Long Legs is closer to that. Whereas, yes, you're right. Quiet Place Day One, to an extent, that seems to be more of like Godzilla x Kong than it is horror. But you're right. I mean, a huge part of the marketing are the scares for that. It's unfair of me to just overlook it that way.
But I wouldn't classify like a Beetlejuice or a Ghostbusters as horror. So yeah,
right.
I get what you're saying. But yeah, I know Cuckoo is by Tillman Singer, who I believe it's his second feature. I caught his first one at a festival years back and really enjoyed it. I think it's based on a French graphic novel. I don't want to talk about the film too much, but I will say, as with his first film, he puts a lot of attention into sound design. It sounds amazing. So I would say if you have the opportunity to see it with some sort of immersive sound format, that would be a really good choice for this particular film because he's a sound dude.
And the other title opening up on August 9th is Borderlands from Lionsgate. This title's been delayed quite a bit. I first heard about it, when was it? CinemaCon 2021? No. Is that how early? Yeah, I think that's how long ago I started hearing about this movie.
It's getting into like Craven territory, really.
Yeah, it's been a while. Well, listen, I'm glad it's finally coming out. There's a built-in audience here. Obviously, a video game adaptation. Comic-Con, I think, helps the marketing here and drumming up some excitement. I'm not sure if there's enough of an audience here outside of the core to show up on that opening weekend. But that is coming up on August 9th. And we do have to mention this title because I think it's going to be one of the two breakout hits of the month of August. It Ends With Us, an adaptation of the Colleen Hoover novel. We have a big opening weekend range for this. I think our baseline for opening weekend for this is 35 million. In our forecasting panel, we've had some folks come in with something as high as 60 million. That's on the high end. Now,
the book is huge. I mean, I know that we've seen in the past, best-selling novels be adapted for the screen for, sometimes successfully, financially, sometimes not. But this whole, I believe it's a trilogy. Is that right, Chad? The first, I mean, it's not just a popular book. Like, it's a huge thing.
Two have been released, and the sequel book sold 800,000 copies by the end of its initial release day. So, I mean, the fan base there is really loyal. They call themselves cohorts after Colleen Hoover.
So
it's going to be a girls' night. Like I would imagine a lot of groups of women going out, getting a specialty cocktail or two.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the best you can come up with? Cohorts? It sounds like a complete grad program in some like Northeastern University. Come on, come up with something better. I'm into
Right.
there being fans, but
Yeah.
cohorts, come on. That's we can do better than that. Anyway, we do hope the cohort army shows up here because we do expect this to be a breakout hit in the month of August. Now, the obvious comp here is something like Where the Crawdads Sing, also based on a very popular book that opened to $17 million in 2022 and ended up legging out quite well to $90 million. So there is a big potential here that even if the opening weekend doesn't catch everyone's attention, this is a movie coming out from Sony. If Sony's good at something, it's making sure films have a time to breathe theatrically. There's a built-in audience. There's a breakthrough potential here. This is one of those movies where opening weekend will not tell you the full story here. There's going to be, I think, a lot more to report about in the weeks coming afterwards. And it has clear runway for the rest of the month of August here. And that includes, obviously, the other big opener that we're expecting in the month of August. On August 16th, one of the most anticipated films of the year, personally, for me, Alien Romulus. We've also got a very similar opening weekend range for that, between 35, maybe 50, $55 million opening weekend. We'll have those updated, I think, the closer we get to release. But there is, I think, a real possibility that this can overperform and get to that $50 million range that, if I'm not mistaken, Prometheus opened to some years back. Alien Romulus coming in from Uruguayan director Fede Alvarez. I'm excited to see it. I haven't seen any of Fede's prior films. I think you have, Rebecca?
Yeah, I saw Don't Breathe. I did not see his Evil Dead remake, but I mean the trailer at Deadpool and Wolverine played extremely well. We're going to talk about this in a later episode, but one of the things that really defines the Alien franchise is that every film is very different from the films that came before it, which is one of the things I really like about that franchise. But this looks like a return to horror. Obviously, the first one was more horror oriented, and the trailer makes it look like it's more graphic, more tentacles than we got in the first Alien. But
the return of the face huggers. Yeah, I've been calling for this as an Alien fan. The face huggers just have so much set piece potential, and you saw how well Cameron executed that in Aliens, in that face hugger action sequence. I think in the first third or first half of the film. We haven't seen too much of that, and we've mentioned this before. It's great to see Disney invest in the 20th Century Studios division of its company, because this year, and this is a point that I'm going to steal from the Rap's Jeremy Fuster, who we spoke earlier this week about where Disney was, where the MCU was after the opening of Deadpool and Wolverine. And something that Jeremy brought up, I think, is on point here. The real performer this year at the box office for Disney, of course, apart from the $1.5 billion behemoth of Inside Out 2, you have to be impressed with how they've finally been able to execute on the 20th Century Studios properties.
It's amusing because that was a big part of Deadpool and Wolverine. Over the end credits, it was like a fan video almost. That was a looking back at the history of the Fox comic book movie, X-Men, and I mean, it made me kind of hadn't remembered how few good ones there were, but definitely a lot of 20th Century Fox nods in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, the whole film's almost an homage to that era of Marvel.
See, now you're selling it to me. Just look
up the music video.
I'll catch it in an airplane. 3 years from now, it'll be fun.
What does the airplane cut of Deadpool and Wolverine even look like?
It's like 15 minutes.
I am certain that everybody who wants to see this movie will have no problem finding this movie. I am talking, of course, of the movies of late August, a time-honored tradition in theatrical distribution and exhibition where you put in anything that might work, but things that might not as well. And who knows how it goes. I'm going to rattle these titles out because I'm not sure how much we can talk about them. We've got The Crow, reboot/remake of the early 90s original. That's coming out on August 23rd, sharing a release date with Amazon MGM's Blink Twice and Bleecker Street's Slingshot. Any sort of reaction from you guys on any of this trio of movies in the coveted August 23rd release slot?
Oh, well, at CinemaCon, the Lionsgate executives were very clear on the subject of The Crow, that we are not trying to remake the Brandon Lee one. We are not trying to replace the Brandon Lee one. This is another adaptation of the original source material. So I think you could definitely tell that they were apprehensive, that fans of the first The Crow movie might be a little turned off by this one. Of course, Brandon Lee tragically was killed during the making of The Crow. It'll all be, I think, on those fans of the original source material, whether that's the comics or that first movie. It'll all be on, I think, word of mouth from them. You have to win them, and they're going to talk about it. And if you don't, then...
Let's now go to August 30th. We got two movies here. 1992 from Lionsgate, a movie set during the 1992 LA riots. That was on the calendar earlier this year, disappeared. Like from one day to another, just was taken away from the calendar, gets popped back into late August. I'm not going to get too much into it because I've seen zero promotional work done on that film. But let's talk about a movie whose trailer I have seen, Afraid, from Sony. And Afraid, the AI is capitalized because this movie is about killer AI. It's here, guys. And I'm not sure if AI wrote it, but August 30th kind of tells us something. Maybe it did? ?
My question is, this is a Blumhouse co-production with Sony. Is this going to be part of that Megan technology universe that they're building up?
It feels like that. I mean, Megan was Universal, and this is Sony. I really haven't seen any marketing for this one, so
I saw a trailer. Sure. I saw one trailer at the Long Legs during the Long Legs trailer portion. Listen, I don't know how it's going to play out. All I'm going to say is it's easy to make fun of movies in this corridor as the movies of August. We're kind of doing it already with apologies, but sometimes one of those movies breaks out a little bit in a cult basis. The Last Voyage of the Demeter was last year's August release of, you know what?
It was the why is this movie released in August movie, where some people, you'll hear afterwards like, oh, it's a shame more people didn't see it. Actually, it was surprisingly good. I've heard good things about Blink Twice, which is the Zoe Kravitz.
We make fun of these titles really because late August has taught us to expect something from movies released in that corridor. But like you mentioned, Rebecca, there's always a diamond in the rough there. There's always something that you're like, ooh, actually, there's a cult potential in this. Afraid might be it. I like the gimmick of killer AI. You mentioned that, Chad, a second ago. Blumhouse did that whole like killer tech thing with Megan, and that worked well. I don't think this is going to get anywhere near the success of Megan. Oh, no. But, mean Alexa, that's an easy concept to sell, right? No?
I'm hoping that there is something here that's going to be a diamond in the rough. I myself think that whole thing is terrifying in terms of having even just Alexa in your house and how it like knows what you're talking about and recommends things to you. No, I don't like that. So an evil version of that sounds actually terrifying.
What can we do? Robot overlords, they're coming for our jobs and our livelihoods sooner or later.
Get this year's targets anything, it's that AI is much stupider than it was cracked up to be.
Yeah, all hype. Yeah. So maybe that's the horror here, that this is AI.
The horror is all the money that got spent on it and all the environmental catastrophe. Well, VC, we're trying to make money off of it.
I'm hoping that the AI conversation is laid to rest soon. So that wraps up our recap of the biggest titles hitting screens in the month of August. And now let's move over to our feature segment where Chad Kenner speaks with actor Zachary Levi talking about this weekend's upcoming release, Harold and the Purple Crayon, that is coming up after the break.
As an actor, this film asks a lot of your imagination. How did you approach creating that magic on screen?
As an actor, whether it's something where you literally have to be imagining things that aren't there, or imagining a life that you're living that is not really the life that you live, you're still having to exercise that muscle of imagination and creativity. It's just like to what extent you have to exercise it. And so for something like this, I got to exercise it just significantly more because I'm not only pretending to be this character that I am not, but I'm also then drawing things out of thin air and having to imagine what they look like proportionally. And that was actually it was kind of one of my favorite things about the movie, to be honest, because it was a challenge I had never been challenged with before. I'd worked with green screen before. I had imagined that there's a big dragon coming after me and, all of these various things, but I'd never had a magical utensil that makes things come to life simply by drawing them into existence in 3 dimensions. And so that was a really fun dance with me and the visual effects supervisor and him coming and being like, so here's how big the plane is, and here's the propeller area, and then just start drawing. And it all came together really well. I was very impressed by it.
Were there certain things that you had to choreograph in order to get some of the dimensions right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Almost everything that we did, there was some level of choreography with it. Occasionally, there were some wires. There were a couple times where we had like a wire frame of something that I could trace, but then they had to take the wire frame out. So it was just muscle memory at that point. But then there were other things that there was no wire frame at all. And so it's just really conceiving in my own mind in 3D space, what is this? How do I conceive of it? Or seeing things that would later come to life, right? Because I would draw a thing and then it would come to life. So like the skateboarding ramp, there's like a kind of like a ramp that Benjamin goes up on and he kind of rides a skateboard and like, this little wave thing. I had to look at that and then just remember the proportions of it. And then I had to skate and then move my crayon to the undulations of what I remembered that to be. And then it goes. And, so like I said, like we were doing it on the fly. So it was very impressive to watch the finished product and see that it all cut together so well.
How does the film celebrate and continue Crockett Johnson's legacy?
The original book and the subsequent books that he wrote to supplement that story, all the other, continued adventures of Harold and his friends, they all boil down to really kind of fundamental things like embracing your imagination, embracing your creativity, embracing yourself, believing in yourself. These are the core tenets. And so I think, I hope that's what we've instilled most in the movie. Above and beyond anything else, that is what the movie should be resonating, should be kind of putting out there. And I think based on the reactions that we've had already from audiences at the premiere screening yesterday, and even talking to my nephews that were there, they just lit up to that stuff. And so that's what I think that our job was, and we did in making this live action version of it.
And that theme of trusting yourself, believing in yourself, finding your potential. I wanted to ask you about your book, Radical Love, because it feels like a good complement, that message.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, having gone through my mental health journey, and a journey that I'm still on and will continue to be on, because we all, are on a mental health journey throughout our lives. It's like our dental health journey. It's never ending. Every day you got to brush and floss your teeth, and every day you got to brush and floss your mind and your heart. And I think that's a huge part of that process, of that self-care, is loving yourself, is believing in yourself, is recognizing that you are doing the best that you can, that you are a product of your own environment, and as is everyone else. And it's hard because, though our parents did their best, a lot of times they left us with a lot of self-talk that isn't the most healthy. And that can lead to us not believing that we're worthy of love, not believing that we're worthy of believing in ourselves. And so I think that's certainly a correlation, to the extent that we're trying to instill in this movie to believe in yourself and to, not let the bully, not let the doubter tear down your innate kind of worth and therefore your imaginative and creative juices. Everyday practical self-care is waking up, and if there are the lies that are flying around in your mind that are saying you're not worthy, you're not good enough, nobody loves you, you're alone, all that's all the darkness. Those are all lies, and we got to fight that. We got to fight that every way that we can.
In a world full of distractions, why is it important for families and kids to come together and see this story in theaters?
Well, yeah, it is interesting. Like, because we're all so distracted, sometimes it's hard to then also say like, but go to this movie. And, because it feels like, well, isn't that just another distraction? But I would say that going to a film, particularly going to a theater and watching it, not just as your family unit, but with other family units, people that you don't know. What that does is creates communal, societal trust, bonds. When you can all go to a theater and you can laugh together at the same things and you can cry together at the same things, what it shows you and what it tells you is that we're not so different. We're not so disparate. Even if you believe in this person on the political spectrum and you believe in this person in the political spectrum, or we hold these different, beliefs in whatever category of belief, at the end of the day, we must recognize that we are all one human race, and we do all feel very similarly about a lot of the same stuff. We're all being told that we don't, and that's a great lie. And I think that, ironically, going and having this communal experience in a movie theater with your family and with other families reminds you that, no, we're really not all that different. And I would also say that I believe distraction is a spectrum, and there is bad distraction and there is some good distraction. And because we can't just be in the seriousness all the time. We can't just be in work mode all the time. We have got to play. This existence, this life that we're given, this incredible miracle of life that we're given is in fact a state of play. I do believe that. I think Alan Watts said that very poignantly, that, this should be something that you see. It's difficult to hold on to that because there's so much serious, gnarly stuff going on in the world. But we must come back to ultimately recognizing that we should be having a level of enjoyment in this, because we think it's this really long experience, but it goes by so fast, And so I think that when it comes to scripted films and television and even video games and music, things that are intentionally made, crafted by craftsmen, by artisans, by people that have talents, true talents, and they bring those talents to bear, particularly with other people bringing their talents to bear, those culminate in what I believe to be good, better, healthier distraction. All of the things on the other side of the spectrum, which are these bite-size, this kind of like almost like the fast food equivalent of content, which is just endless scrolling on TikTok and Instagram. And, and by the way, it's something that I, even as a grown man, can struggle with sometimes because there's so much information and you want to know it all, and everybody's got a little FOMO and you're like, well, what's going on in the world? I gotta know. But they know that. The social media companies know this. They've designed it. The algorithms are there to trap you, to make you endlessly scroll through this stuff. And that is the bad distraction, because that is literally disconnecting us from ourselves and from each other. But again, to sit and watch a piece of art, a piece of entertainment, and to do that with other people, your people that you know and people that you don't, that is a good distraction, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Did you grow up going to the movie theater, seeing movies as a kid?
Oh, yeah. We loved going to the theater. What
were some of your bigger experiences or memories?
Ooh, oh, gosh, so many. Well, I mean, growing up and me and my sisters were huge Disney nerds. We everything Disney. We had the Disney Channel when it first, popped up, and when cable literally didn't know what they were doing. They were just like, well, just put anything on there. And so it was all the Disney Vault. And so we benefited from that, right? So there was all these old cartoons that, unless you grew up in the 40s and 50s and 60s and whatever, you never would have seen any of those. But because of cable TV and because they didn't have any actual original programming, we got tons of that stuff. So not only did we get to benefit from that through the television, but then the Renaissance, the Alan Menken, Eisner Renaissance of all the Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and all of those movies, we were absolutely in theaters watching those. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, that was pivotal in my life. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I remember vividly going and seeing Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure with my buddies. We were all probably in 4th grade at the time or something, but it was so amazing. We loved it so much. So stuff like that, yeah.
And that was actor Zachary Levi speaking with Box Office Pro's Chad Kennerk here on the Box Office Podcast. Earlier, you heard from myself, Daniel Laria, and my colleague Rebecca Pauley going over the latest updates and news in the world of theatrical exhibition. Don't forget to subscribe to the Box Office Podcast. New episodes come out every Thursday. Thank you again for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week.